So take it away, Bob and Andy.
Okay, so what do we do here? Can I share my screen?
Oh, let
I
me.
can.
You can? Okay.
I can. Yeah, there we go. And I guess I'm going to present because that's what we're doing. Can you see my screen? No.
We can see your whole screen. So we see the whole browser window.
Yeah. So where's my present? It didn't work. That's okay. We'll just go through the slides like this. So we're going to talk about Drupal recipes. And kind of the start on this is, don't you wish you had a Drupal site building recipe book when you started doing Drupal? I sure did. And I had one called Using Drupal. That was the closest that there was out there at that time. So myself and Andy are going to be talking tonight mostly. Adrian's going to come on a little bit later. He's the guy who built our Fox Valley Drupal.org site that has all the Drupal recipes on it. And he's going to be mostly just kind of sitting in the background saying hi and taking notes and stuff. So, who's Bob Snodgrass? Well, I've been around for a little while. I started doing Drupal about 2007, 2008. First site was a Drupal 4.7 site with organic groups for a small community type site. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing since then. We started Fox Valley Drupal in January of 2009 because I got tired of going downtown Chicago all the time for all the meetups and getting home at 2 or 3 in the morning, which my wife did not like much at all. So that's me. Andy.
Hey, everybody. I'm Andrew Olson. I go by Andy. I work for a company called Bounteous, and I'm just a little south of Bob, so I'm in the far west Chicago suburbs. I'm a lead front-end developer at Bounteous, and I'm co-maintainer of the TV Mega Menu module. We have some exciting things going on there. And also live captioning. I love surrounding myself with all things captioning. I'm really excited that Amy June has been really doing a great job with captioning in transcripts. So thanks for carrying that torch, Amy June. And last thing, I just want to thank Canopy and Amy June for having us today to speak.
Yes, ditto. And the most boring thing that I did today was make the breakfast I do every day and herd my wife out the door so she could go teach elementary art remotely from her school. I don't know why that is, but so be it.
Yeah, I'll go with my boring thing was this is now the 4th time I got a Docker error and it's the same error and I can't figure out how I've solved it, but I once again solved it and I hope this time I'll actually remember it. So it's very boring because it's the same error. Sadness.
Oh yeah, well. And Adrian, he's been with us for about 3 years, and he's the maintainer of foxvalleydrupal.org. He's done a lot of Drupal recipes that we're going to talk about tonight. His background is in telecommunications and wide area networking. He does all of our like DNS and email and all that crap I really, really hate to deal with, but I'm so glad he's there to help me with that. And he's the owner and maintainer of a bunch of Drupal sites. And he's Adrian, you'll find him out on Drupal.org there. Fox Valley Drupal's been around since about 2009. February, I think, was our first meetup. And we've got 2 kind of presences out there. One is the meetup on meetup.com, and the other is foxvalleydrupal.org, which is what we're going to be seeing today. So what are Drupal recipes? So Drupal recipes are anything, it's a guide for mixing up ingredients of things to make something really nice. And I really wish that there was stuff that was out there when we started this, but disclaimer, there's no Drupal recipes book, sorry. That's what we're kind of helping documentation as much as we can to create those kinds of things. And our hope is to encourage more participation to help save people who are doing Drupal all the time, all that pain and suffering that we've all had to do on our Drupal journeys, learning Drupal. We used to say a lot, there's a module for that. And that's really true. There's a module for damn near everything. And what we'd like to see with the recipes is that there's a recipe for that. So really working hard on trying to make that move forward. Because Drupal is still kind of complex. It's hard to understand. It's like a jigsaw puzzle without a picture. And yeah. So what's the idea behind these Drupal recipe things? So we want to provide Drupal people with site builders in particular with a starting point to build things. Because we all have things we got to build on Drupal sites. And we want to produce something that's going to be a repeatable guide to do the functional parts of a project that's going to be extendable and sustainable. We don't want to duplicate things that already exist. There's lots of great stuff out there. So we don't want to duplicate those things. We want to look for those things that have nothing right now or very little that we can extend. We want to make it evergreen so that once we do a recipe, we want to keep it up and keep it updated with the latest, greatest versions that are out there and help people find information about the older versions that they might still be on. And we want to be able to contribute this stuff back to D.O. One of the main things we're using this for at Fox Valley Drupal is to help onboard people that are getting started with Drupal or onboarding them to be contributors back to D.O. And we want to make the things that we put out there agnostic to the kind of development or hosting platforms that people are working on, so that it's not, you don't have to do things with, everybody's got to do DDev or everybody's got to do Lando or anything like that. Andy, this is your slide because it was very important when you brought it up, because everybody's like, at this point was like, what the heck are they talking about?
Yeah. So what we want to make sure is that, it's not a module or a set of modules to install. It's not really like a distribution. It's not a thing to start up and have as a distro. It's not like a repository or a starter kit. It's not Stack Overflow, CodePen, or like a CodePen or Drupal Answers. So those are, it helped to define what recipes are to say what it is not. So we can probably go to the next slide.
So Hussein is here tonight. Thank you for being here, Hussein. And he's been very instrumental in this whole thing. I think that the first time we talked about this in public, and Andy, we started out right with, oh, what do you guys do over at Bounteous? And what I do to kind of figure out how we're going to build sites so that they're repeatable and sustainable, right? And so they had their methods and I had mine, and none of them were very good. So we started building some of this stuff, and we started talking around foxvalleydrupal.org, or Fox Valley Drupal User group at that point. We didn't have the .org. And Will Long helped us get the site up and get our continuous integration work done, and it's hosted out for free on Pantheon. Well, Hussein brought up, after we kind of introduced this, I think it was Asheville Camp, we had the kind of an open source day or a kind of an unconference type thing, and everybody said, yeah, this Drupal recipes sounds good, let's talk about that. And all of a sudden I'm talking about Drupal recipes. Hadn't even really planned anything yet. So but Hussein went to Drupal.org or DrupalCon and put a BOF out there, and I happened on the BOF, and we got in there and we had all kinds of people there. It was really an awesome conversation. And then since then we posted about Drupal recipes. I think that was just before that, and then we decided to put the Drupal Slack up, and now we've got a Drupal recipes project on Drupal.org and a page. And we've been going around, Andy and I have been talking about this, all these different places. And it's been pretty well received. We've gotten a number of people involved. So that's been a lot of fun. So we know that there's a need for this because, you know, a lot of the documentation is really good. It's awesome, but we want to help that whole process. And so in talking with the documentation team, we've decided to embed our Drupal recipes as one of the sections on extending Drupal in the contrib or the community docs, community wiki, if you will, because everybody edits those things. And so we've got actually a page out there that's waiting to get added to this once we get enough things out there that make sense to do it. And now we're going to talk about kind of what's next. We really need to promote the creation of this recipes content. And again, Hussein has stepped up with getting people in touch with us and putting some things out there. We've had a number of people put new recipes out on foxvalleydrupal.org, and that's helped us a lot. But we want to step that up, and that's part of this conversation tonight, to solicit more ideas and get more participation. And we're going to next do some more site enhancements and adjustments to foxvalleydrupal.org with the recipes area. And we're going to continue to develop the Drupal recipes on D.O. We actually have a project now. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is, Drupal recipes. So if you look for a project, Drupal recipes, you're going to find it out there. There aren't any issues out there yet, but this is where we're going to do those issues. Andy and I will talk more about that later. There's also the Drupal recipes page, which we're waiting right now because, you know, we've asked to have it included. Maybe that would help us get this moving quicker. I don't know. Maybe it would hurt us, but after we get some more recipes, we want to embellish this and get it out there. Where was I going with that? Sorry, Andy. So this last one was kind of you with what we're really trying to do tonight and going forward here. Getting feedback and enhancing recipes and promoting those appropriate recipes out on D.O when they're ready.
Yeah, so I think this is a culmination of a lot of conversations that Bob and I have had and we've had with the community, and we're really excited tonight to talk to more people about it and get some more ideas because it's not a fully formed thing. We have a good direction, and Bob and I have some good ideas about the direction we're heading, which is kind of documentation, but it's also a knowledge share and kind of step by step. It's also a way to lower the barrier for people that may have, like, I've heard about Layout Builder, I haven't really tried it. What's the best place to start? You know, and instead of going to one article, maybe this is a culmination of 3 articles that step you through that. So some of the conversations, back to what Bob was saying about at Bounteous, we have a monthly meetup where somebody on our team of Drupalists brings something cool that they've done, or something that they've explored, or a really interesting project that they cracked a really cool, solid problem. A lot of times, you know, we're busy with projects that doesn't always flow back into the community. Sometimes it turns into a great blog post on our end. Sometimes it turns into a great speaking engagement at DrupalCon or other places. But talking with Bob and kind of the Fox Valley Drupal meetup is how can we share that knowledge better with the community? And so we've shifted a little bit of how Fox Valley Drupal is to work and lower that barrier on concepts, to have recipes about concepts and help people step through ideas or parts of Drupal that they're just uncomfortable with, like solar or something else. It can be as tangible as it needs to be or as abstract as it is. Because it's not quite documentation. It's kind of a step-by-step guide. And there's sometimes when you might need to go to a repo to get something and then come back and continue. So it's not always an article. Not everybody has the ability to post about an article or start their own blog. That might be overwhelming to some people. So through all of our collective knowledge, somebody I know on this call has done something really cool and interesting, has taken their own step-by-step. I'd use this module, I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, there was a gotcha here. And if they were just to collect that into a few steps and post that, then we could take that to the Fox Valley Drupal meetup. Somebody could verify that. We could all do that real time, or that could be somebody's homework assignment to then take it and then say, hey, I got to step 4. What are you talking about? Where is the, manage display tab? I don't see that. Some pretty obvious things. And then maybe a screenshot gets added. Anyway, rambling a bit, but we could probably go to, so that's kind of what we're looking for here, what recipes are. And I'll pass it back to Bob about kind of getting started with taking these ideas and creating some recipes.
Yeah. And the fun part about this, the way that we're doing it, I think, and maybe it's just me, but we're not locked into putting this out for the world of Drupal because, Fox Valley Drupal's not got any legs. Nobody's coming there except the people that want to look at it. And so it's a little less visible and a little bit more safe for people, I think, to get them to do things. There's lots we could do with that. But the whole idea about recipes, bringing it back to what we're trying to do, is build a feature or build a thing. You want to build a thing. How are you going to go about doing that? You can start out with an idea. You can do some research on that. Maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe you find all kinds of great information about how to do this and it stops there. We don't care. It doesn't matter because we're all going to learn something in the process. And we're using this to help train people or mentor people through using Drupal on a day-to-day basis. And maybe it comes out with a recipe that gets published out somewhere. Maybe it'll be like, wow, this is really killer. Let's put it out on D.O and make it really great. But we don't have to start there. We can start anywhere we want. It can be a napkin drawing. It can be, whatever you want to do, all the way through, whatever you do on your projects. But how do you get started? So the first thing would be to go out on foxvalleydrupal.org and create an account. Join that Drupal Slack. There is a Pound Recipes channel. We also would recommend that people go out and join the Pound Drupal documentation channel, because there's a lot of great stuff out there. Those are the people that have been kind of like, hey, where would we put this? What would we do with this if something is of value to put out on D.O, or where would we want to go? And then join us next Wednesday for our meetup, where we're just going to be working on different things. Maybe someone will have a presentation on a recipe that they started. Maybe we'll go through and try to spin one up and try it out and see if we can give some positive feedback for that. So that's the getting started part of this. And so I guess we can go into kind of a demo here, but before we do that, does anybody have any particular questions? We've been rambling on, so I need a break. So you can unmute yourself if you put it on your window, just by hitting the space bar. If you want to do that, just pipe up.
Hi, this is Cindy. Just curious about how you're thinking about these recipes, because back in Drupal 7, using Drupal 7, and when I was freelancing, and I did a lot of sites rather than working on one big enterprise site, which is, my day-to-day now, I had like a checklist of those modules that I needed to install for every Drupal installation.
Yep.
And then, if you want groups, then there's this set of modules, or, those kind of things. Is that sort of where you're trying to go with this or looking to go with this?
It certainly can be. With our projects, we have certain sets of modules that we put on every site, and then we have different kind of collections of modules that we put out there for certain builds, certain types of builds.
Mhm.
So that's the starting point of the recipe, but in order to make it really work, you've got to get it configured. You've got to go in and figure out how is that going to be used and how's that going to be used differently than another site might have used it. So it's really kind of the idea of I'm going to build out this little feature set and what needs to go into that, and allow it to be kind of more organic so that you can create your user stories, you can create your prerequisites of things that you want to do, and your steps to be able to get it done. And then there might be, beyond that, some extensible recipes where I got this base recipe and now I want to add another one to it. So we've kind of built that idea into the structure of our recipes content type on Fox Valley Drupal. And
I
that's
can
what
give,
we'll show.
to add to that, I think I can give 3 examples of things that have been in my mind. First one is responsive images. I knew responsive images was something that I needed to do on projects moving forward, but I really didn't quite understand how to implement it. And before I got into all the requirements and the shackles of a project, of what I had to do for the client, I wanted a place to play and just try and understand and break settings and not have to worry about my full install and have to backtrack it. So responsive images recipe was really intended to say, what is this? How is it? Oh, I get it now. You know, this is how it works. And I really now need to use this moving forward. The second one is, I told you I work on the TB Mega Menu module. So we as maintainers of that responsibly put out documentation and talk about how this module is in a lot of wide variety of settings, but we have implemented it on a lot of clients here at Bounteous, and each one has different flavors and it had different requirements and different implementations. Well, it's kind of irresponsible for me to put that into the documentation of TB Mega Menu, but if it was a recipe or a thing that said, we did it kind of this way because the client wanted it to work in this certain way and this other client wanted it to work in this certain way. To me, those are different flavors of recipes that don't really belong in documentation. They don't really belong in articles, but they're very related. They're using a module that might use like some other modules, like for menu to add classes, to do something to the menu, to add icons or something, you know, something very interesting. So those are flavors of something that a core module, not a Drupal core module, but a module that we use for large clients might have variants of. And the very last one is one that another person brought to it. They built an interesting video gallery and said, I did this last month, and everybody on our Fox Valley Drupal meetup was like, well, how did you do that? Well, I used this module, I did this, I used a view, and we're all like, that's really interesting. And then other people chimed in like, well, did you try this? Did you look at this? And so then it kind of formed an idea of an interesting topic. There's many different ways to do it and different considerations. And it was kind of fun having a bunch of Drupalists, a bunch of Drupal experts just chip in a very safe way about a very simple concept of a video gallery using the media module. And if somebody in the next week has a client that says, I was thinking about a video gallery, you know, hey, go here. So does that help kind of say what recipes are in our head in different flavors of what we've heard?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you for the clarification. And I'm even more intrigued. Again, I think back to my freelancing days where it would have been wonderful to show to a client who says, you know, I think I need an image gallery. Well, you know, here's a few. Let's check these out, right? Before you do that deep dive, spend a lot of time creating something that when the client sees it, they hate it. right.
Yeah, how many times have we all done that?
Yeah,
Who's installed 5 modules to test something out and then does not
Oh
uninstall
crap, now I
those?
Yeah.
gotta rip it all out.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's a different world with Drupal 8 too, because of Composer and,
Yeah,
those kinds of things too. It's very different from when I was working with many different clients using Drupal 7. So
yes.
this is, I'm completely intrigued.
So,
There were
so this is,
two more things out there,
Yeah.
Bob, is our test kitchen.
yes,
So there's this idea of a test kitchen. So when you said you were freelancing, instead of adding all those modules on a project that you didn't want to mess up, or you didn't want to release something and not use it and create fat, we're in a place now, if you're me and don't screw up your Docker all the time, but there's a way that you can spin up a safe, empty environment and just play around. I feel like we've come quite a ways to where you can have a clean install of Drupal and just try a few things and just destroy it or move on. So creating a test kitchen is just like, I just want to see what responsive images does, and I don't want to break my client's site or branch off and have all the stuff. So let's play. Another idea is the ingredients. So again, riffing off of Drupal recipes. So I have these 4 modules. What can I do with it? What kind of recipes do I have? Because this is what this client has. I may be a freelancer and inheriting this client. What are some interesting things that I can do with what I have instead of hunting and pecking and adding more modules that have the same thing? So go ahead, Bob. Those are some more
Yeah.
concepts we've been kicking around.
yeah, those are a couple, like, we really love to do that. Another thing that I've got in mind, just self-servingly, is that we're already taking care of foxvalleydrupal.org. We're going to set a tag up for N2C, Net2 Community, which is our company. And, that way, if we put a recipe out there that's an N2C company, we'll be able to find it easily, pull it up, and here's our recipes that we've documented that we can go back to and maintain. And we don't have a problem with sharing that with folks, because that's what we are. Is, maybe some of us are competitors, but really we're cooperators too. So what's the word for that? Cooperators? I don't know. You put those 2 words together, right? You got something. So that doesn't mean we have to hold close to that.
When you mention recipes is a lot of times I use the Jupyter notebooks. Could this fall into play with what you're doing?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, the Jupyter notebook, it's mainly Python based, but I was looking up some of the kernels. There could be one based on Composer or
cool.
Some different languages as well.
Can you put a link out in the chat for us on that? Because that's cool.
Okay.
That sounds very interesting. So yeah. So let's just take a quick little tour through Drupal, Fox Valley Drupal and Drupal recipes. And I mean, it's really pretty basic. I'm lazy, so I haven't got any events set up. There's nothing scheduled, but next week there is one. So I haven't got that out there yet. And then there's a little bit about us, type of thing, fun facts. Then we've got recipes, which is really the main guts of this thing. So, and the idea is that we didn't want to keep coming up, like Amy June does a great job of going out and finding speakers and people with things to say that are going to take up a big block of time. But now, especially that we're all remote and even down the road, that's a lot of work doing all that stuff. I'm a small company. Andy's busy with projects. All the people that are in our group are kind of busy with projects. So we're trying to have Drupal recipes be the content feeder for our user groups. And that's been working pretty well. But we want to bring people into the community and get them involved and show them what can be done. So that's also part of this Drupal recipes. Tracking things that we do in our companies, great. Putting it out, getting it developed, put out on D.O, that's great too. But this is kind of where the idea came from, was to do it for our meetup group and for teaching people about Drupal and bringing them in. And we've got a ton of these recipes, not a very nice view here, but each one of these is a listed item that's out there. We've got a title field. We've got an objective field. Those are the only two required fields on our recipe content type. It goes into a status when somebody starts working on it. A lot of them might be ideas. There's an idea right there. So all we've got is the name and the objective. It hasn't been very well developed yet because it's just an idea, but we're putting it out there. We'll have some different filters on this to be able to filter down and find the things that you're looking for in Drupal recipes. But that's kind of the front end page for it, which is going to undergo a little bit of change shortly. Our login is pretty straightforward. It's typical Drupal stuff. If you're going to create a new account, all you need to have is an email. That's supposed to be off. I'm sorry, I haven't done that yet. I didn't apply all the changes I did on the site, so I'll do that as we get started here. Maybe as Andy's talking about some stuff, I'll do it in the background, unless somebody wants to watch that. I don't know. So we got rid of this field here because that module we tried didn't work. So it'll just be an email. Take the first string of your email. That'll be your username. And you'll be sent a typical login link to go from there, and like that. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, and I'll log in as B Snodgrass, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe I'll do it as Fox Valley admin because I'm not sure of my permissions at this point. I may have screwed something up. Like I say, 5 minutes before our meetup is when I deployed. And we'll go into development here and go ahead and go into our sync. Get all the new things that we've done today going. I'm brave, right? Hey, live demo. What the heck? So with that, I'm going to go to a new window. And this will be our kind of starting point of our demo. Maybe, come on. Where'd it go? There it is. It's thinking about it. So if I'm going to create a recipe, I go into add content. I should have just gone down here. And so there's my title, there's my objectives, those are my required fields. And then we've got a place for inspired by, because we all have our little blog posts that we see that, oh, that's a cool thing, I want to build that. And then we've got our recipe types. These can change. That's a taxonomy entity reference field. So we can change that to whatever we want. We've got a status field. So if I'm going to start out with an idea, I'll start it out there. I've got a place for Drupal version. So if I'm going to do an 8.x, I can pick whichever one is in there. 8.x, it's all good. I can add another one if I want. If there's one that doesn't exist already, I think I have that one set up so that it will actually create that in a taxonomy term. Not sure. We've got our module categories. We don't have anything in here right now, but let's say, because this is a new field I just put in. So maybe this is going to be a community style module category. And we'll add another one and we'll call it groups, or the group module, right? And then our recipe tags, maybe this is going to be something on the order of N2C, because this is one that we do typically. And maybe it's going to have a lot to do with views, so we can put that in. If these are found, it's gonna have it identified in the list that I can pick from it, or if I add it, it's going to add it into the list. So that works pretty well. And maybe I'll do layout builder too. Who knows? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'll get rid of this later on. Research and preparation notes. So the whole basis for these sections in Drupal recipes are these things called notes, which are entity construction kit entities. And so if I add a new one, and I can use these to create my use case or my user stories or my background research or whatever experimentation steps that I'm going to, or a set of links that are some of the research links, requirements or prerequisites. Any of those kinds of things can be put in this research and preparation area. And we can show those in different ways, of course, because we've got our display styles that we can create. So if I add a new note, though, it's going to have a title, and it's going to be something like, let's see, modules list. And these are my modules, blah, blah, blah. And from here, I can put in the URLs and go from there, right? And I can go ahead and create that note. I can create as many of these as I want to, adding new ones in there. So you can see how you can build on this thing. Then we've got a place for media. So you can add different kinds of media in. You've got a place for steps to build, optional steps, conclusion on what your recipe is good for and what else you want to do with it. And then you can create related recipes. So if this is going to be something for groups, I could say something like, let's say, layout builder in groups. And that will create a new recipe for me. So if I'm going to do 10 recipes, and this is going to be my main parent recipe, I can build it off of here without a lot of effort. Supporting organization. So we're going to say Bounteous is in on this one. And we're going to say Net2 Communities in on this one, if I get in the right place. And I can say who's going to do it. Adrian. Adrian loves it when I do that to him. And Andy. And so on. So I can keep on adding more people in there, and I can go ahead and save it. But before I do that, I got to have those required fields. Groups, modules, module parent recipe. So it's just kind of a little example that I'll do here. Set up for multiple group sections of your website. I'm doing a real good job typing tonight. I'm an old guy. I didn't learn how to type until I was 50. Let's see. So there we go. Got all that. You get the idea anyway. And now I save my guy. And if I'm living right, it's going to save. Come on. Did I not click that, or what the hell's going on? There we go. There we go. So there's my parent recipe and all the things. So one of the next steps we're going to do is pretty up the display of these things, right? So that's part of what we're working on right now. But we're getting the architecture first. We have got a number of these out there, and maybe Andy wants to guide me to looking at some of the ones that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, my go-to, the one I built, was the responsive images. Ralph, who's also been really instrumental in helping us form these ideas, Ralph Kohler, he comes into he joins a lot of meetups. He's a great guy, provided some great feedback. But yeah, so if we scroll down just a bit, Bob, you see the recipe inspired by. So personally, I knew I needed to use responsive images. It was irresponsible for me to build a project not using those. I feel very passionately about it. So I was like, what the heck? I need to it's been a while since I've done a fresh site. I needed a playground. So this is my recipe kind of capturing that. And I found these articles, and as I found the articles, this is me just spinning up. Scroll down a little bit more, Bob. So those are the articles that inspired it. I needed to really figure out, yeah, keep going down to environmental. So this is me just saying I needed to spin up a D8 site just naked and give it a go. So Brian Perry had an Olivero sandbox. I wanted a theme so I could add breakpoints, media queries, and just really like figure it out. So this is just my brain dump of what happened. And again, at Bounteous, I would normally do this or reach out to another front ender and say, did I do this right? I got stuck on step 4, step 5, and they would help me through it. So I do these all the time as I'm learning and playing and building. And I like to do them in a safe way before I touch the client's code base. But yeah, as you can see, I added a comment, Bob, to somebody suggested having a CK editor code snippet to make adding code snips a little bit better. But
Where,
yeah,
what?
I put in the comments something in CK
good.
editor just so we don't forget.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, so as you can see, this is not documentation. This is pulled even together from some other documentation. And other cool things I found along the way is, you know, you can use pixel density, user prefers dark modes. You can load different you can load different images based on user preferences. User prefers reduced motion. So I could use that media query and show a different image if that's what the user wants. So these are really interesting things, and those could be sister recipes for this.
Yeah.
Any questions about kind of how these ideas came together?
So if nobody's got anything, we'll move forward. So there's a couple of different ideas. This is a cool one that Adrian did, taking a static Drupal site. So this is a project that we did for a friend of mine. We had a Drupal site, and he's kind of winding down, and the pandemic is forcing that a little bit. So he's like, I really don't need a website anymore, Bob. So I'm like, okay, we'll help you out. We'll spin this out into a static site using the site he's already gotten. So now it's out on a static site on, I don't know, GitLab, I think, or GitHub or something, just being hosted for free. So it doesn't cost him anything.
Yeah, it's on GitLab, Bob.
Yeah, GitLab. Okay, thank you. And so that was what Adrian did on this one. Here's the thing that Karen, right? Karen Dickinson put together on her video gallery. So that's kind of a cool one. Some recent ones here. We had
Solar, I'll talk about the Solar. So configure search API Solar. So I passed that along to another backender that I work with here at Bounteous. And he wrote back, he's like, hey, I got stuck on step 3 and I also had some troubles. So he's like, I took my own note. So it's inspiring him because he wanted to spin up a Solar and screw around with stuff. So he right now is going through his notes. He's stepping through this to help with this recipe and provide that feedback.
Yeah, and so I can't pronounce the name Hassan. But these folks from Accelerant got in touch with me and say, hey, can we put a recipe in? I'm like, heck yeah. So we got them set up, and here we are. We got four new recipes here in the last week. And if you look at it, you know, the layout builder introduction is really nice. So she's got some pieces put in here with some images and a lot of good text on what they did. And so it's a good starting place for somebody to kind of walk through a step by step and what do I have to do? And it's not like a video, although a video can be embedded, and there we go. So it's showing the video.
So
And she did a
will
really
say-
nice job just spinning it up and doing it.
Yeah, so I followed this. It was really great. And then I followed, there's another one about layout builder restrictions. And I know SFDUG had a great talk about like the layout builder ecosystem. After looking at the layout builder restriction one here, it got me to pause and go out, and I went out to the layout builder documentation and was actually impressed with some of the layout builder documentation and steps there, as well as some of the layout builder restrictions. So my feedback to this person was, hey, it's great that you did this recipe. Agree, this is a great module. You're capturing it well, but have you seen the documentation? And this might be a point where it's not a recipe as much as we need to figure out how this is different than documentation that I saw.
It might be a new kind of recipe. It might be an exercise.
Yeah, or it might be, you
Learning
know,
it.
the documentation, I didn't know that that was there and that's better. And so let's peel this back. Or, you know what, I was trying to do this thing with layout builder restrictions and I found it helpful in this scenario. And that's not documentation anymore. That's taking it to that next level of how I'm using it and why I'm using it, which is documentation is to kind of help inform, and recipes can be riffs. Like I'm riffing off of what these can do for me. So,
and hence the idea of, we want to bring people into the fold on Drupal. We don't want to have them be intimidated with, can I go in and edit this documentation thing that's already on Drupal.org? Oh my God, I'm scared. I don't want to do that. So this is like a real low barrier for someone to come in and do that. And the community backs something as well. So maybe we can take some of these and flesh them out. And if you look at some of the modules that are out there, the documentation now that is going, a lot of them that are going into contributed modules, that's like writing a book on how do you actually build this with a bunch of other stuff. That's kind of like a recipe, right? So it might be going beyond what some of these folks used to do for documentation on a module, on a contrib module, and turn it more into a recipe. Maybe some of those turn into recipes, who knows?
what we've tried to say with, developers I work with is, I know everybody has recipes and step-by-step go-tos that they've walked through. And the more of these we see, the more it's going to help us define how to capture it. And also it's going to help us see how to improve documentation, but also differentiate it from documentation. So, because documentation, there's some restrictions. This is some freedom, but they can really coexist and really help each other. I found a thing about step-by-step guides, which might be, or it could start as an idea of a recipe and then turn into a step-by-step guide, which is more formal documentation for Drupal. This could be a great step in the door and lower that barrier and help people along the way.
Yeah. And so if people have questions, I'd say let's go ahead and do questions and answers. But we also have, we're being a little opportunistic, I'd say, because we want to talk about what ideas other people have, because we want to rip your ideas off and flesh them out. And so there was a couple that Andy put out that I'm going to just add in here.
I mentioned this at a previous talk you had given, but because I love to have it announced in a wider audience, I'd be very interested. I wouldn't be able to do it myself, or I mean, I could, but it's not my forte. Having recipes around paragraphs and what people are doing for paragraphs solutions. Because that's challenging as a site builder for me, is the paragraphs. So it's sort of an open invitation for folks.
Yeah, and I have like 20 ideas that people have thrown out. And Amy June, that's one of them that I have on here that you had thrown out at one of the other ones. I just haven't put it anywhere yet. So again, this is me being lazy, me being Bob, or busy, or whatever you want to call it. I call it lazy. So,
I now call it Bob. Just kidding, Bob. I love you, man.
well, it could be. So the test kitchen idea was one, something way for people to spin up a testing lab real quick. And you know, we got Simply Test Me out there. There's the dev panel. There's maybe some repos that we could put out there that people could spin up a section of stuff. What were some others that we were talking about, Andy? You rattled off earlier.
Yeah, I think the ingredients was like, I have these modules because I think that was before I think we had the modules, like what modules used. But like, I have these 5, just like I have a tomato, a piece of garlic, and some pasta, you know, or chicken and tomatoes. What can I make with this?
Yeah.
So listing recipes with that. 2 more ideas to bake into here were like verification of the recipes. So that's something that, you know, I'm doing. I'm enlisting people at my company to do that I know have that expertise. So like people that I know do config split. That's not my jam. People that are really good at search. Again, that's not my jam, but they can verify and shake in a few articles and things that they've read. Possibly a rating system to say, I did this, you know, we don't want to discourage that, but the idea is as this gains momentum and more recipes come in, it would be good to know what ones are kind of verified and people have used, have found helpful, versus other ones that are not quite tested yet. I think that would be probably be a better way of saying the rating system, not that this one's more popular than others. It's this one's
Right.
verified and useful.
Right. One thought that I had today as I was looking at some of the things that were out, again, the contrib modules, there's a lot of people that have a ton of great content, and even to a recipe level with their modules, they're saying, yeah, you could do this or that. You know, look at web form, and you got web form examples. Oh my God, talk about that. That would be duplication if we tried to do anything like that in a recipe, I think, right? So better to point people to those things. So one thought that I had was maybe we need a section on the main Drupal recipes page that, you know, that talks about existing recipes elsewhere. Great examples of recipes, or these could be, you know, whatever. I don't know. What am I saying? I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Yeah.
More ideas in the lull. We've talked about creeping old weekly drops because there's a whole tutorial section. So if we creeped some old existing articles, at least to inspire them, you know, we'd always point back to them, but I do know I have my list whenever the weekly drop comes out. I'm always like, dang, I gotta test this out or play with this or learn more about this. A recipe might be my just capturing my journey as I learn something and then giving that back, and it might be helpful for others.
Yeah.
It might not.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because everybody's tired of looking at it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody unmute, and we maybe want to stop our recording now because it's all just us chickens now, right?